Hey guys, I hope you're doing well and your swimming is going great. We got another good episode for you today. Part two of my interview with Coley Stickels, maybe the most creative mind in swimming. If you missed part one, go check that out. Today we're going to be talking about tapering, everybody's favorite subject, ISL, and his favorite set, which I promise you is very different than your favorite set, but I think you're going to like it. I'm going to give it a try. It sounds really cool. In case you're wondering, like, hey, what are you doing these days? I haven't heard anything from you. Yes, I'm still going at it, still aiming for 52 in the 100 breast, 155 in the 200. It's just, season is just getting started. I'm in my second week right now. There's not a whole lot to report or show. Paddles are flying. Thank you so much if you have bought one already. We do team paddles. Check these out. We have been designing some really cool team paddles for high schools and colleges. Talk to your coaches so you guys can get, a nice cohesive look when everybody's killing those pull sets. And while the music plays here in a second, please give me a like and subscribe because this is going to be a hell of an episode. Let's go. So I guess on that note, maybe this is jumping ahead a little bit, but how do you approach taper? Because in this sport, we've created this like mythology around taper, and people get so paranoid and in their head about it, and it's almost like it's this magical window that opens for just the slightest bit of time, and if you don't get through it and you don't time it down to the second of the day, your whole season is shot. Like, how do you view it?
Super compensation, right? That's what we're talking about, which is essentially taper. And there is a period of time where you're probably at your best, and it varies according to sport. In Olympic weightlifting, those guys are doing nothing. I mean, they're not even lifting a bar, a week out. And then velodrome, cycling, speed skating, they all have different ways of tapering. And swimming, it's more of a tactile thing, right? We're in the water, we're having this fluid, we have no oxygen, so it's a totally different kind of mechanism that we're floating through this fluid, and so we feel the need, whether it's right or wrong, to get in the water and do more.
Right.
And so I think I look at it in terms of, dry. This is the way I used to look at it anyway. Now it's more eyeball tests, but I used to track it in terms of contacts, right? In the weight room, if a push-up would count as a contact, a burpee would count as a contact, a squat jump. So I would, have these contact points, and then when I'd taper, I would modify them, and we'd go down to say 20 or 30% a week before of what we were doing mid-season. It's kind of the same in terms of volume in the water. We don't do a lot of volume, at our peak in season, but we're probably at about, we're reducing volume significantly, probably by about 65%, a week or two out. And I'm not really tracking, but the bigger, higher level swimmers that are more advanced in terms of their conditioning, capacity, weightlifting background, that kind of thing, I'll give a little bit longer taper to.
Yeah. So I know that, people, and I'm sure you're no different, but tend to shy away from putting a number to something. But, roughly, is there a number of weeks you shoot for a high schooler versus a pro swimmer?
It's different. I think with high schoolers, they're somewhere around 2 week tapers. That's not a hard set number, but it could be for a freshman female in high school. It might be 9-10 days, and sometimes they'll tell me, "Look, I don't want to taper that long." So a lot of it is just them kind of communicating with me, or if they're unsure, it's maybe 9 or 10 days. And then that's kind of the minimum. And then for an older high school, maybe a high school male seniors, maybe 2.5 weeks. And then we go all the way up to college and sprinters, world class, and they can go up to 3-4 weeks. I tell everybody that one of the things that I saw in the ISL, which was fascinating, it was like this, taper. It was this elongated taper. Nobody was really training. We
Right.
would get in and swim, and we'd get the heart rate up, but we weren't doing test sets or, any
Right.
type of volume for any type of effect. And then they just kept getting faster and faster. They just raced their way into shape. And then after 10 weeks, everybody's faster somehow. And I think partially they were great athletes with a great background, but part of
Right.
it was, they're racing their way back into shape, and they're getting an idea of what they want to do, and they're basically working on what their weak points are when they're not racing, as opposed to training for just training sake and adding volume. So
Right.
not sure if that makes sense, but I did watch, what I felt was like 10-week tapers in the ISL. The swimmers obviously older and a little bit, wiser, but they were doing well by 10 weeks, which was surprising.
I'm glad you brought that up because I had totally, ISL seems like it's in the rearview mirror and so long ago. But the thing that did stand out to me is like how these swimmers got faster. And I'm like, how are you guys even training? Because all you're doing is traveling around and racing. Like, where's the
Salo
training?
and I, yeah, exactly. Well, Salo and I did this experiment, and we failed miserably, but we thought we were in this together, and we sat down for weeks at a time and kind of divvied up the Tokyo Frogs for which we were coaching, and Salo took like the 200s on up, or the middle distance people, and I took all of the extreme kind of sprinters, 200s on down, and we cut them in half, and we had these kind of pre-work, we had these camps, and we were training them and doing all this stuff, and we were certain that within these small time periods we'd have this big effect on their training, and they'd all go best times, and everybody would be great. And I remember coaches from other teams were filming our workouts, and they were like, "What is this, like the Marines? Are you guys? What are you doing?" And Salo and I thought we knew better, and then the first couple of meets just totally backfired. Everybody was slow, and then Salo and I kind of looked at each other and just were like, if they need help, maybe they'll ask. And so we backed way off, kind of let them do their own thing, and everybody got faster, and the rest was history. So we didn't have much impact. Our training, our pre-camps and up until the ISL didn't do much. It maybe hurt them, but it didn't. It certainly didn't help anyone. So it was a really interesting period to kind of look at elite athletes in terms of their training and how much do they need, and it was an eye opener, and I sure miss it.
Yeah. I think one of the most fascinating things that has happened in our sport over the maybe ever is COVID, and how you had kids who were forced out of the water for months. And I remember seeing swim articles that, when things did finally reopen and you had kids who were swimming meets after just a few weeks of training and going best times. And I'm like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Other than it was fascinating, not really. I think it was. I saw it left and right, and yeah, I mean, my thought is kind of what I've always felt was the aerobic, portion of swimming is. I think it's necessary to some degree. I don't know to what degree, but not much, because basically, if I could sum up my research from years of grad school, it was basically high intensity training. When we looked at it versus just straight aerobic training, we found that the lower volume, higher intensity training not only increased the capacity of the anaerobic, development, buffering capacity, all that, but it also increased the aerobic capacity more so than aerobic training did. Now, this was in a different population. We weren't looking. I mean, everybody kind of cites, who are you looking at? Was this a sedentary population? Was this geriatrics? Was this? And
Right.
it was like, I think it was like college frat guys they were studying. Kind of, your wannabe kind of athlete, and they broke up. These were multiple studies over time, but then they looked at, in Japan, they looked at the Tabata protocol and fartlek training from Sweden. And so these types of high intensity training, methodologies have been around for a long time. So in answer to your question, over COVID, I think we realized that if people could get in and do some type of training, mostly sprint, right? Because we were limited in terms of pool time, space. It wasn't like you had, hours to just do aerobic training.
Right.
You had everything I saw was on the very short pools with cords, and maybe it was 15 and you were suspended in static training, and then dry land training, and then lifting, and then people were going crazy times. So I don't think anybody was doing a ton of training during that time. And you're right, they came out of it and people were flying.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, another interesting thing is this swimflation. The sport really is evolving glacially, I think, in term, especially compared to other sports where, there's much more of a scientific academic, approach to it, and real thought into like, do we need to be doing what we've always been doing? But we've got kids who are still just, the records are just dropping. And it seems like the style of training is still very rooted in decades ago. And so I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts, explanations for how it is that some kid who's really not doing anything different than somebody 20, 30 years ago is just doing so much faster?
I think, yeah, I think a lot of coaches coach the way they train, or
Right.
they, make modifications to some degree based on what they did as kids or in high school, or what have you. A lot of them don't don't read and don't look at the data and the science, and I tell my swimmers all the time, as soon as I see some data that says aerobic training, a long aerobic training is better for sprinting, I'm happy to do it. I will change according to the science, right? I'm always kind of looking at PubMed and talking to my friends that are actual scientists about what they're saying, and different sports, and it's specific, right? It's transferable. Sprint training, equates to faster times. We've seen that correlation with power development, rate of force development, and other sports, and Olympic lifting, that type of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I was always of the opinion too, and that the way that we train was engaging. That's important. I thought it was difficult, but I felt like it was the best way that we could possibly train for our given events at this point in time, given a lot of things, given where we're at, and from a scientific perspective. But I guess as I've aged, I've kind of looked at, not everyone is the same. Not every sprinter wants to do the weird stuff we're doing, throwing fins over a railing and running a 40 and doing a running dive. And some of it's just for engagement, some of it's to kind of trickery, right, to keep the heart rate up, and not really give the swimmers a defense about what's coming up. Because they know what 10:50's best average on the minute feels like, but they don't know what running a 40, doing a running dive 15, and then doing a running dive, at an angle into the wall for 30 meters feels like four
Right.
times through. So a lot of it is just to kind of, keep their minds on something other than the fact that the set hurts really bad. So yeah, I think, but there are other swimmers that want to grind, and I've seen that, and they don't want to think too much. They want to go on autopilot. They want to keep their heart rate at 150, and they do a darn good job competing, with that. And so I can think of a few swimmers that I've coached that do better with kind of a generic training program. As much as I like to think that mine is the way, it's not, and there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. So there are some people that need to do the aerobic higher end stuff, and they need to just swim continuously to get that feel. I think a lot of it's feel. I think a lot of it's just what they're feeling in the water, and too many transitions. with equipment or with drills or, going back and forth, even with certain strokes, it doesn't work for them. So there is
Right.
this, I think there are some swimmers who need the aerobic longer stuff.
Okay, now I'm going to try and get you pinned down on this one, and I know it's a tricky question, but there are going to be people watching this show who, when they watch these things, they want to know, they want those nuggets of wisdom. What kind of sets can I do that Coley's doing that's going to make me faster? Do you have a favorite set or kind of set that is easy to understand without a big long explanation for it?
I like doing, just a generic set that I've been doing for years is just kind of something hypoxic into sprinting. So we might do a 25. This is very generic, but we might do a 25. This is yards, where we kick 15 and blow out all of our air for the first 15, and then hammer 10 yards all out, and maybe that's on the 25. And then we do stuff like a 25 fast, grab a kickboard, 25 fast with a kickboard. So that it equals a 50, right? And then maybe we do a 25 moderate with the kickboard, or we use the kickboard as a buoy and do a 25 pull, and we do rounds of that. So again, it would be, no breathing for 15, just kicking in a surface, blowing out your air, 10 yards all out. You take some rest, but not total recovery. Then you do a 25, basically all out. You grab a kickboard that's on the other end. It's waiting for you. You do a 25 kick all out, take some rest, and then maybe you go a 25 easy pull. And you do rounds of that. You add fins, you add a parachute, you add sock, whatever equipment you have, something like that. I mean, that's a very generic set, but something that kind of spikes the heart rate quickly. And it gets you into a very race specific pattern, right? We don't have any oxygen, or we have limited oxygen when we're competing. So it gets you hypoxic right away and gets you to basically simulate a race pace condition.
Now, number of rounds to muscle failure or to something short of that?
Well, it depends. I gauge, that's a great question. And I gauge that on how the set is going. So if I feel like, if I do something like I just told you, and I feel like this, I overshot the set, meaning it was too much intensity, too little rest, I will change it on the fly, or I will do it again in reverse, or I will add fins, or I will start shortening the distances and adding to the rest. So I'm not afraid to change the thing on the fly, and that we might finish 3 or 4 rounds of that. And if I feel like the intensity isn't high enough, then I'll say, okay, we need to elongate. Instead of going a 50, maybe we need to go a 75. And we're not getting to where we need to be in that 50. So we need to go longer. But I'm always kind of watching and assessing the intensity and the duration, and are they actually holding the speed? And I think that's the fundamental question here is, are they actually holding a race specific speed, or has this set become, we talk about this a lot, VO2 max versus lactate. It's like VO2 max is really hard. It's meant to go for 2 or 3 minutes. Your heart rate's 170, 180, but lactate is a whole different animal, right? You're supposed to be at 14 millimoles of lactic acid. It's all out. It's as far as you can tolerate it, as fast as you can go. They're totally different energy systems. And so what is it becoming? And so you have to know exactly what you want out of the set. You have to know what speeds and how fast these swimmers are. And is it a goal 50, or is it, their current 50? And so we get very specific. We get down into it. We get down into stroke counts. We get down into kick counts. So there's a lot of variables within a set. And it's my favorite. I think my favorite aspect of swimming as a whole is set composition, set writing, discussing what the different aspects and reasons and rationales are for different sets and drills and equipment.